Previously on the all-new adventures of the Doctor Who Book Club podcast.
Given everything that's been happening in sort of like Doctor Who news in the last sort of month or so, I think even if it wasn't time to do a Ninth Doctor, I think we would have done a Ninth Doctor now. Because like Chris Eccleston seems to be embracing fandom, as I said at the top of the show. So we're doing a Ninth Doctor book. We are going to be doing a Steve Lyons book. Ooh. We're doing The Stealers of Dreams.
Awesome.
Yes.
And now our story continues.
Welcome, everyone, to the all-new adventures of the Doctor Who Book Club podcast. This is Matt in Minnesota.
Chris in South London.
Chris, how's it going?
It's going well. It's going well. We're now in November.
Yeah, I was going to say, fall is in full swing. The leaves are falling.
Yeah.
School's back in session. The nights are getting longer.
Yeah.
It's great Doctor Who weather.
Yes. And fireworks are going off. It sounds like a war zone in the UK, at least. Particularly if, like me, you live in an area which celebrates Diwali as well. So then you have, like, best part of a month of it. But it is pretty, and as long as you lock your animals up, it's okay. So.
And this month we are reviewing The Stealers of Dreams by Steve Lyons. But first, I think we have some Doctor Who news and such to discuss.
Yes, yeah. So announced late October, since we last recorded, BBC are doing an animation of Fury from the Deep.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
That's exciting.
Yes.
I'm just learning this now. I know they had the faceless ones planned, but no, I think that would be a great story to do. I was just looking at the reconstruction of that the other night, actually.
Yeah, so, it's one of my favourite Troughtons. But certainly, from the book. I mean, I haven't actually listened to the audio, but the book is so compelling. It's a very interesting story, and it's somewhat different from your usual Troughton, despite the fact it's still a bit based on the Siege, but it's a bit kind of like Unity, and I am looking forward to it.
It has an interesting TARDIS landing at the beginning, too.
Oh, yes.
We don't really see that often.
No. So I believe that will be out in 2020.
That's great. I hope we keep getting more of those, because they're going to have to put something on the Blu-ray releases, I think.
Yes.
Which, by the way, each of the Blu-ray seasons has quite the treasure trove of PDF material. I think each season has like anywhere between 1,000 to 1,500 PDF pages included of just different like production material and then scripts and stuff. And even on the recent season 23 Trial of the Time Lord, they have the original treatments for episodes 13 and 14 from Robert Holmes and Eric Sayward on there.
Ooh, that is interesting.
I may end up having to buy an external Blu-ray drive just to access the material on the discs.
Well, yeah, because that is a point. Because I can't. Because I don't have any. Our laptops here, don't have any kind of CD or DVD or Blu-ray drives. But I am fascinated by the ability to be able to read what Holmes and Sayward had originally planned.
The external drives are pretty cheap these days, so I'm thinking about picking one up just to have access to. To those. But yeah, each of the seasons has like over 1,000 pages of PDF material, which is kind of cool.
Cool.
Some other related Doctor Who book news to highlight this month. The Target storybook is recently out. I haven't had a chance to read it yet, but it's sitting on my Kindle, and I also ordered the UK first printing, so that's on its way. I'm excited to read that. That'll be the final contribution from Terrence Dicks. And I heard Matthew Waterhouse's story is pretty good, too.
Cool.
I was going to say surprisingly.
It is a surprise. I mean, because he's not known for fiction writing. yeah, or at least I'm not aware of his fiction writing career. So, but yeah, oh, cool. I'm just chuffed for Matthew Waterhouse. I mean, it is nice that he's being kind of, I don't really want to use the term rehabilitated, but it does feel a little bit like that. And now he's got Big Finish audios coming out with Tom Baker. Who would have thought that? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Whether or not he's in the same room, or whether just Tom Baker is now with two companions that he can't be in the same room as, but he's...
Yeah, well, you can't tell it when you listen to it, so it speaks to the acting involved, I guess.
Yes.
And then on December 5th, we'll see the release of another anthology. This one focused just on some of the famous people that the Doctor has name-dropped over the years. It's called Star Tales, and it's going to feature stories by Steve Cole, Trevor Baxendale, Joe Cotterill, Jenny Colgan, Paul Mars, and Mike Tucker. And I'm thinking this one may just be 13th Doctor related, as I don't see any of the other Doctors on the cover. And then on December 12th, we get the 29th volume of Doctor Who Magazine's comic strips coming out. This graphic novel is called Ground Zero and features tales from the 1st, 3rd, 4th, 5th, and of course 7th Doctors.
Yes, it's been a while since I've read it, but that's a very... Well, I certainly... Ground Zero itself was a very good story. And I think the others were good, but Ground Zero stuck in my brain.
And then a couple of other things kind of farther out. It looks like there's going to be a prestige Doctor Who-related novel released in February, written by Sophie Aldred. So no word on whether she's writing it herself or if James Goss will assist like he did on Scratchman, or if Mike Tucker will co-write as he did with her on the nonfiction book Ace, the Inside Story back in the 90s. So I think that'd be kind of cool, especially if it ties into the recent thing she shot for the Blu-rays.
Yeah.
And then even further out on the horizon, it looks like there's at least 3 more Target books coming. No titles or authors revealed yet, but it's already been announced that Eric Sayward's recent 2 Dalek novelizations are going to be getting the Target treatment, similar to how City of Death was trimmed down from around 300 pages to Target-sized for its paperback. So 2 of the 3 could probably be that, and in terms of what the other release would be, I would love it if either Chris Chibnall novelized The Woman Who Fell to Earth, or perhaps a reprinting of the 8th Doctor novelization of the TV movie from Gary Russell. If he reworked that as a Target, he could fill in some of the missing final act, because the battle between the Doctor and the Master, that was largely figured out on set and was missing from the script that Gary was given. And then he could also write an epilogue with Night of the Doctor. Because I kind of love it in the Target range, especially if you're reading them in order. You usually have 2 different authors providing their take on, the same regeneration scene.
Yeah.
And we'd get that here because Moffat novelized that as part of the Day of the Doctor already. And it would be kind of cool to see, Gary Russell's take on those same events.
Yeah.
So all sorts of stuff coming, even though still no Doctor Who on our screens.
Yes, and just a vague promise of early 2020. So, yes.
So, Chris, what do you have for Show and Tell this month?
So for Show and Tell, I had a visitation from some friends of mine, sort of including their 9-year-old son, who showed me his homemade Lego sonic screwdriver collection.
Oh, wow.
Which was impressive. There were like 10 different screwdrivers that he'd made. Some of them were videos from YouTube based, but some of them were ones that he just made his own, including a 13th Doctor screwdriver. And some of them do kind of like, they pop open. They don't make any noises, but they do kind of like whir a bit and extend. And it's just...
That's brilliant.
Yeah, it was fantastic. So hopefully when this comes out, I'll have photos of some of the screwdrivers to show. So it was primarily New Who. There were some of his own designs as well, one of which looked somewhat like John Pertwee's. Yeah, it was really quite impressive. And it's just, we said on the show before, it's always fantastic to see younger fans excited and infused by the programme. And he was saying to me, "What's your favourite screwdriver?" Because I, grew up with McCoy and everything. The screwdriver always felt to me like part of the show's history, but not part of the show's present. And so I don't really have a favourite, I don't think, particularly. So, and I tried explaining that to him, and he was just like, okay, well, this is strange, all people talk. Because also I was thinking, because when I was not much older than him, that was when the show got cancelled.
That's wonderful.
It's just fantastic to see such creativity. He's also made his own TARDISes as well. It's a bit of a shame that there isn't a lot of Lego Doctor Who material, and also that there is really quite expensive apparently. So he also showed me his homemade K9, which I compared to the K9 you get with the Lego Dimensions thing.
Sure.
And he was very pleased to see how, quotes, accurate his was. Apart from the fact he didn't have K9 on there, but he's had some kind of custom made parts made for some of his screwdrivers, and so it's where his pocket money goes, into just making screwdrivers. It's awesome. Great. And also he's wanted to do a little bit of video editing, and told him, well, there were some fans that sort of started doing a little bit of video editing stuff, and they ended up doing the opening titles.
Well, that's right. Ben Pickles, yeah.
Maybe in 10, 15 years' time, or even sooner. But, cool.
That's great.
So how about you?
So my show and tell this month only has the slightest kind of tangential connection to Doctor Who.
Oh, that's fine. I've been guessing away of that for years, haven't I?
But there may be a bit of overlap between the fan bases. So I'm talking, of course, about the new TV series currently streaming on BBC Three, the UK edition of RuPaul's Drag Race.
Okay.
It's
I'm aware of it. I wasn't aware of any Doctor Who. Okay, cool. Go on.
I'm really enjoying it. In the US, it's available on the WoW Plus app, or with a week's delay, it's on the Logo channel in the States. But in the UK, it's on BBC Streaming. And one of the worries I had kind of going into it was whether the UK version of Drag, which is significantly different in taste and style from like the American version, whether that remained intact with kind of the wonderful sense of British humor that the UK queens are known for. But it is, and it's a really fun show. And the Doctor Who connections have been mainly with the guest judges. So, for example, Daleks in Manhattan's own Andrew Garfield.
Really cool.
Is one of the judges, as well as Maisie Williams from Series 9, A Shielder, and Lady Me or Mayor Me.
Okay.
So if you're a fan of the American version of the show, or if you just enjoy kind of the camp sensibility of UK drag culture, I'd highly recommend it. It's a lot of fun.
Andrew Garfield's presence reminds me of when, I think it was Infinity War was being promoted. You had Benedict Cumberbatch and Tom Holland doing quite a bit of like British media interviews and everything. And so they were being asked a fair few different questions, most of which not related to the movie, because obviously they couldn't speak about Infinity War. And they were said, who would be better in RuPaul's Drag Race out of the two of them? And Tom Holland said, oh, definitely Benedict, because I'm not much of a driver. Then got pointed out to him that he might have misunderstood.
Yeah, well, although I have seen Tom Holland on a lip sync show and he did pretty well.
Yes, that is fantastic. Yes, yeah. If you don't know what we're talking about, you need to stop what you're doing. Just put the podcast on pause and go and have a look for Tom Holland lip sync. So for, I think it was Rihanna's Umbrella, wasn't it? Mm-hmm. In lip sync US. It's amazing. Because also Tom Holland has he's got a dance background because he was in the stage production of Billy Elliot over here.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Forgot about that.
And so obviously the vast majority of people know him as Spider-Man. And whilst he's quite kind of live and nimble and that, you kind of think, well, that might be CGI and everything. And so it's just amazing seeing him dance. But yeah, he is such a good sport in that. It's just fantastic.
So, very cool.
Yes.
So now on to The Stealers of Dreams by Steve Lyons.
Yeah.
And as you said last month, Chris, how appropriate we're reading this now that Chris Eccleston has embraced fandom. And has come around to that, and his recent book out, and reminds me a little bit of the 8-year gap or so we had with Paul McGann before he started doing conventions. Although at least in his case, he had been doing audios for a few years before he, and he's still on the convention the tour. They'll be in, I think, Chicago in November later this month for Chicago TARDIS.
Yeah.
And even though this is our first Steve Lyons novel for the podcast, we've read 3 short stories by him already. He had a River Song story, a Third Doctor and Joe story, and then a Fifth Doctor and Nyssa story from the Short Trips collections. And he's written several stories for Big Finish, including The Fires of Vulcan, which reintroduced Mel to the audios, and Colditz, which created companion Elizabeth Klein for the Seventh Doctor.
Also had a young Scottish actor called, what was his name again? Oh yeah, David Tennant, yeah.
Oh, I was going to say David McDonald, but yeah.
Yes.
And then Steve Lyons has written several comics as well. He wrote 34 stories for the Doctor Who Adventures magazine with the 10th and 11th Doctors, which I'd love if there was a compilation, from that series, because I never picked up those magazines because they were aimed at younger readers. But I'd love to read the comics from him. And then he's also written for DWM, a 12th Doctor story called The Dragon Lord. And then I've read his 2 Grant Markham companion books with the Sixth Doctor, as well as Conundrum and Head Games. And then on the nonfiction side, he's done some work. I really liked there was a completely useless Doctor Who encyclopedia that he wrote with Chris Howarth, which was very funny.
Oh, that was hilarious. Yeah.
I think he did a Star Trek one as well, in that same kind of vein.
Okay, that might be worth seeking out. But yeah, no, the completely useless guide just had me in absolute stitches. Yeah. Even though I have not read it in 20 years, so hopefully, yeah. Maybe taste may have changed, but yeah.
Yeah. And then this book was first published in September 2005, so after the Ninth Doctor had regenerated, but before we had seen David Tennant in the Christmas Invasion. And it's the last Ninth Doctor book so far.
Yeah. It
takes place after Boomtown, but before Bad Wolf and Parting of the Ways. And I know I call this out whenever we read new series books, but I really do like the kind of the hardcover feel, similar to like the Lemony Snicket books. These just feel kind of right-sized. And then the spine numbering too, being in Gallifreyan, is always funny, where you have to flip to the corresponding chapter title to decipher the number on the spine. And then anything else you'd say about Steve Lyons?
I met him, I think I said before when we spoke about River Song, that I met him as part of his kind of like promotion of the River Song book. And it was not the longest of conversation, but he seemed like a lovely chap. I thanked him for writing Conundrum and completely blanked about any of the other books of his that I'd read. And he said, yes, no, that was a popular one. I thought, oh no, I've kind of suggested I think the rest of your stuff was rubbish, which is not the case. Yeah, just in case he's listening, because as I told you last night, I suddenly realised I'm being followed by Daniel Blythe. I'm like, it's nice that some of the authors are following us, but I'm like, okay.
Remain impartial.
Oh yeah.
And this book has a prologue, 17 chapters, and an acknowledgement section where Peter Darville Evans is thanked for taking a chance on Steve.
Yeah.
And it's dedicated to his Monday night group for having the imagination. So shout-outs to Dave, John, Pete, Phil, and Tracy. So shall we begin?
Yeah, let's begin.
All right, so the book opens with the TARDIS materializing on a human colony world sometime in the future. I don't think we ever get a firm date as to when it's set. So on this planet, which is kind of like a jungle planet, there's a single city, and life is stale and mundane and almost kind of too mundane in the city. And as the TARDIS crew are exploring, and we should mention this has Captain Jack as well. So the news reports that they're all just really ordinary stories about things that you wouldn't think would be newsworthy, like tax credits and promotions. And the network led with a story about a woman who got home from work early because she hit all the green lights on her way home in traffic. And the city is only expanding upwards, not outwards. And so the TARDIS crew, they stop at a cafe, and the Doctor asks the woman what the planet's name is, and she's kind of shocked by this. And she's like, of course this is Colony World 4378976 Delta 4. And he can't trick her into saying anything differently. And the manager then kicks the doctor out of the cafe for, quote, disturbing the other patrons. So the doctor ends up booking a room at a hotel nearby for the three of them, using his psychic paper as a credit card, having realized that the people of the city are kind of polluting things and burning fossil fuels, and there's no fiction of any kind. And they're thinking that, maybe the rulers of this colony have somehow deprived the citizens of fiction in order to keep them under control by removing their ability to dream of something better. And the doctor vows to put a stop to it.
Any modern parallels? No modern parallels at all with any of this, is it? But the only thing is, news reports being all about ordering people's tax credits. Right? It's just, our news is about tax returns, isn't it? Or at least in America. Or people's inability to produce them. Sorry, that's...
I think it's spot on. Yeah, it's funny how throughout this book I was struck by, there's a lot of parallels to current state and news affairs. And
yeah.
One thing I'd forgotten was, so the book opens with a prologue having to do with this girl named Kimmy, which kind of introduces things on the colony and how she's having nightmares or bad dreams, and she's visualizing a monster in the room, which the description kind of reminded me of like one of the monsters from Monsters, Inc., where it was supposed to be sort of scary, but not really, I guess.
Yeah, it also reminded me a little bit of Listen as well.
Yeah, there's some big parallels here, I think, to several different Doctor Who stories, and we'll probably touch on that throughout, but Listen is for sure is one of them.
Yeah, I think Moffat read this, didn't he? And RTD. So while Rose and Jack are catching up on their sleep, the Doctor heads out into the city, and Rose is kind of woken by sirens, and she heads out to investigate. She bumps into this very panicky guy called Dominic Allen, who is carrying some interesting comic books about flesh-eating zombies. And Dominic claims that he and his friends get together to swap fiction, but they've been raided by the police. Dominic's kind of managed to escape, but he's convinced that he can hear the police kind of coming for him. Yeah, and also when they're kind of like talking through the comic books, because he shows some of them to Rose, and Rose criticises some of the depiction of female anatomy, which it's fair enough, because there were quite a few comics, particularly in the 90s, where you're just like, what? Why are we doing it? I mean, it still happens to this day, I think, in comics, but you just look and just kind of go, oh, come on, folks, we can do better than this.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so Rose isn't sure whether it's like the noises that she's hearing, like the sirens and everything, whether it's in her imagination. So she invites Dominic back to the hotel room so that he can tell her a story. And he explains that he was inspired to write by this pirate TV station called Static, run by this mysterious renegade called Hal Gryden. And unlike the other stations, Static broadcasts fiction, and Dominic dreams of getting his own stories on air, but he's got no idea how to go about it. I think Dominic's a bit of a Mary Sue, isn't he? So
maybe a little bit,
yeah. And so Jack is in the room and suggests that Dominic learns how to sell himself, and he starts telling a story about his old conman days. I think, isn't this where we get references to kind of like armoured sharks?
Yes, the Salacians.
Yes, who are a race that Steve Lyons has created and used in other Doctor Who stories. However, this tale from Jack panics Dominic because Jack is kind of stretching the truth a bit, as you do often when you're telling a story, and there's a few lies in there, and we've learned over time that Jack is not necessarily 100% truthful, is he? So Dominic is now fearful that Rose and Jack are undercover cops, and they're trying to trick him, he fears, so that they could take him to the home for the cognitively disconnected, which is known as the Big White House. They'll burn out his brain so that he'll never dream again. And he then throws himself out of a 60-storey window, and certainly at the time, from a narrative point of view, it comes as a hell of a shock, because also that's where the chapter ends. So as far as we're aware, he's gone to his death, and it's certainly for me it was a shock.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's not till later that we learn that he survives there was like a fire escape or something that had like anti-gravity fields, or so he's kind of lowered safely to the street. But we don't find that out until a little bit later, I don't think. The big white house reminded me a little bit of the glass house from The Who Killed Kennedy.
Yeah.
Just kind of in terms of, this big scary institution that people check into but rarely check out of.
Yeah, for me, I just kept on thinking of, another White House.
Yes. So out on the streets, we meet Inspector Waller.
Yes, Waller.
And she's pursuing one of the fiction, they're called fiction geeks in the story. Inspector Waller's pursuing one of these fiction geeks through a nearby apartment building, through an elderly couple's flat. When cornered, he claims to be Alador Dragonheart of Etruria, and Waller's disgusted by this and places him under arrest, which I think he was claiming to be one of his in a role-playing group or a role-playing game.
Yes.
And she's even more appalled when the old woman in the flat pleads for mercy, believing that Waller intends to shake her down for a bribe, which is, of course, a fiction. The woman had been watching the pirate TV channel Static and has believed the lies spread by Hal Gryden, and Waller arrests her and her husband as well. And when she emerges from the apartment building, Inspector Waller finds the doctor studying her motorbike. He claims to be a government inspector, and she tries to arrest him since there's no government on their colony world. Mm-hmm. The doctor kind of switches gears and produces a psychic paper and reminds her that he actually claimed to be a researcher for Channel 8 News who was preparing to produce a documentary on thought crime. So she buys this claim and allows the doctor to kind of ride along with her on her beat on the back of the police cycle.
So one of the interesting accidental parallels to modern events is about the government, because they've suspended Parliament in this book. That was because they've created all the laws, they don't need to create any more. So that's why we won't have Parliament anymore. Of course, here in the UK, for various reasons, Parliament got kind of suspended for a little bit until they got unsuspended. So it's like, whoa, this book really does, it feels like it was only just written in some respects. But I think it's so on the nose though, isn't it?
Yeah, and the parallels keep continuing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, so the doctor watches with interest as Inspector Waller gets a call from her superior, Steele, on her sort of like wrist video watch thing. And apparently the patrols have got a fix on Hal Gryden's current location. So she rushes off to kind of help with the arrest. And she's seen what fiction can lead to. Because fiction's on the first step on the road to fantasy. And soon its victims, as she feels, become incapable of distinguishing between reality and their imaginations. And there's this interesting recurring phrase throughout the book of fantasy crazy. Because people say, oh, it's fantasy crazy. And it almost feels like fantasy is almost like a stand-in for a popular swear word. It just keeps on getting mentioned, that phrase, fantasy crazy. But so Gryden's signal is lost before the patrols can move in on him. And so she investigates. There's some sirens that she's hearing from the financial district, where a fancy crazy office worker is holding some fellow bankers hostage, and he's threatening to blow up the building. And his hostages are starting to go crazy themselves because they're fearing that he's armed with a death ray with which he intends to take over the universe. Well, that sounds like something the Master would try to do. But
So during this hostage situation in the bank, the doctor's trying to calm down the worker there who's holding the rest of them hostage. His name is Arno Finch. But then Waller intervenes when the doctor asks Finch what he wants. And this is considered a dangerous question because it encourages people to imagine something different from what they see before them. Finch insists that he's seen game shows on Static in which people are given cash prizes and vacations away from this planet. But when Waller reminds him that that's all fiction and lies, he panics and goes to detonate his bomb. And then for a moment, Waller in the narrative sees the ballroom go up in flames before her eyes, and she's unsure whether this really happened or whether it was just her imagination. It was kind of this really kind of surreal sequence. And then the doctor steps forward, picks up the detonator, and reveals it was just a TV remote control. And then, furious with herself for succumbing to Finch's fantasies, Waller places Finch under arrest and has him sent to the home for the cognitively disconnected, the big White House. And then the doctor insists on following him to see what happens next, because he's realized that the situation on this planet is more complicated than he first thought. And around this point in the narrative, too, it becomes clear that the Doctor and Jack and Rose kind of all split up and are having their own separate stories. And that structure, and especially like the Doctor posing as a member of this reality TV or documentarian kind of crew, that reminded me of, there's a Big Finish story called Live 34, where the Doctor and his two companions, that was the Seventh Doctor, Ace and Hex, split up, and it's kind of a similar format where you're experiencing each of their stories through the course of a couple of days, and they overlap and kind of interlink in interesting ways. But you were mentioning Listen, but that seemed a bit of a parallel. And I think you could probably also draw a parallel to the Happiness Patrol, too.
Oh, yes. Yes. Yeah. No, I think the Happiness Patrol's influence is quite keenly felt.
And the bits with the fiction and whether or not, where you're determining or trying to determine which reality is real or whether or not something's imagined, that, of course, Listen, but then also reminded me of Last Christmas, where you had the nested dreaming sequences, and you're trying to figure out, like, okay, is this person really doing this, or is it being imagined by someone in the narrative?
Yeah. So Waller takes the Doctor to the big White House, where the Doctor meets the duty nurse, Cal Tycho, and tells Cal that he wants to show people the reality of things so that people will believe the evidence of their own eyes and not the lies that Hal Gryden is touting. And Tycho shows the Doctor some of his patients, including a man that had kept his dead grandmother in their flat for 6 weeks because he believed she was still alive. And Tycho explains that people begin to lose the ability to distinguish between fantasy and reality when they hit puberty, but children are still taught to control their dreams in order to prepare them for adulthood. Nevertheless, violent crime has been on the up ever since Static started broadcasting. And the Doctor and Waller watch as Tycho questions the bank robber criminal Finch, after giving him an injection that will paralyse the right hemisphere of his brain, which is the side of imagination.
And yeah, we get a lot of left brain, right brain, sort of rational versus imagination in this. And I think a lot of what that is based on has been disproven by neuroscience since.
Yeah.
Where it's not that kind of clean, and it's a lot more complicated in terms of where in the brain different regions, activate or in tandem with each other, that sort of thing. But at the time, at least from like a pop culture understanding of like the scientific basis for this, it was pretty much right around where, because I remember hearing that too, like, oh, that person's a right brain person or left brain person, or oh, they're artsy versus math leaning sort of thing. But yeah, I don't know how much of that is
fiction
fiction or reality. Yeah. So then the Doctor notices that Waller has kept her helmet on the entire time that they've been inside the big White House. And he deliberately maneuvers her into a position where she must either remove her helmet or lie about her reasons for keeping it on. And this scene is where our dramatic reading for the month comes in. It's a brief excerpt from the audiobook read by Camille Kaduri. The audio is still available on CD or digital download from places like iTunes and Audible, and came out, I think, like 6 years after the book. So kudos to the BBC or AudioGo at the time for going back and recording it. So
have they recorded all the Ninth Doctor books?
I think the first three have just recently announced, like I want to say in the last 2 or 3 months. So they went back and did the second wave of 3 several years ago, and now they're finally doing the first 3 as well. Okay. So yeah, better late than never, right?
Yeah.
So let's have a listen.
Yeah.
Here we go.
The Doctor glanced at Waller. "You must be hot in that helmet." I'm fine. Must be stuffy, he said. When she didn't answer, he persisted. Just wonder what it's for, that's all. You don't reckon you need protecting in here? Didn't think so, and it can't be to intimidate the bad guys, 'cause that'd imply you'd want them to use their right hemispheres. You know, to imagine what's behind the black visor. They don't have to imagine, said Waller sharply. They can see I'm a police officer. That's all anyone needs to know. On the screen, the holographic Tycho was asking Finch about his childhood. The answers came resentfully and were slurred as Finch struggled to speak through one side of his mouth. Tycho responded to each one with a weary tick on his data pad. Okay, said the doctor. My fault. I know you didn't want to come here. I thought maybe you had something to hide. There was a long silence. The doctor stood, smiling, innocently. He didn't expect Waller to lie, of course. Which left her with only one choice. She took off the helmet. They both stared fixedly at the screen for a few seconds, then the doctor risked a sidelong glance. Waller was a dark-skinned woman, approaching middle age, with shaved greying hair and a misshapen nose that had obviously been broken a time or two. She was standing almost at attention, obstinately avoiding the doctor's eye. Nope, he said. Don't see anything wrong there. 2 eyes, 2 ears, the right number of noses, all in the right places. No hideous scarring. Must be the other thing, then. Waller didn't take the bait, so the doctor asked a question of his own. When were you here? A lifetime ago, she confessed grudgingly. But you're still afraid they'll recognize you. Was Tycho here then? No. It can happen to anyone, you know. I'll bet. I was a teenager. You know what it's like. No matter what they tell you, you can never quite resist the dreams. The dreams feel good until you get older, until it goes bad for the first time. How long did they keep you in? 16 months, said Waller bitterly. 16 months out of my life, and the worst thing is I've no one to blame but myself. No one can say they weren't warned. No one can say they haven't seen. But they let you go. I was one of the lucky ones. They taught me to repress the images. I couldn't do my job otherwise. It means everything to me, Doctor. When I'm out on the streets on my bike, everything is clear. Everything is black and white. I know the procedures. I can throw myself into the work because it's real, because it's now, because I enjoy it, and because while I'm doing it, it's as if the ghosts aren't there for a while.
Thanks, Camille, for reading that.
Friend of the show.
And like I said, the audio version, if you want to hear the whole story, is still available through a variety of formats and avenues. So as we heard in the audio excerpt there, Waller's forced to admit that when she was a teenager, she was sent to the big house, the White House, for 16 months after her fantasies about monsters got out of control. And ever since then, she's devoted her life to protecting others from their own nightmares. The nurse, Tycho, then insists that his people have good cause to fear the big bad wolf. But the doctor then shakes that off by pointing out that, he's just using a metaphor, so the doctor dismisses that.
Interesting, though, because the Only Human, which is the other Nine Factor book that we've done, that has no bad wolf references. Because it's worked into the narrative pretty subtly, and I thought, just like how the bad wolf references were in that season on TV. Yeah.
I was when I read that, I was like, yeah. It was a fun little tie-in. So then the doctor now understands that, fiction is indeed dangerous on this world, but people have been treating the symptoms instead of the cause for so long that they can't imagine living any differently. The doctor has his own ideas about kind of what's going on, and before leaving to go off shift, Inspector Waller admits to the doctor that the planet's name was outlawed because it triggered associations and imaginative thoughts in the colonists. And then in the narrative, we get 2 or 3 or 4 different names for the planet that come up. One is Journey's End. One is the Greek word onerios or Oneros, which means the carrier of dreams. And another potential planet name we get is Discovery. So we're kind of kept guessing through much of the narrative. We know it's not Earth, but what planet they're on.
Yeah, so as morning dawns, Jack heads out into the streets to get a bit of a feel for life in the colony. And I think it's a bit round about here that he sees an ad slogan for toothpaste, where it describes the toothpaste as being not quite as effective as the leading brand, but cheaper. Because in advertising they can't lie of this world. And it's just, there are these lovely little touches like that throughout the book. So Jack meets a tramp who's looking for alcohol with which to numb his fantasies. He's actually a rich businessman. And Jack takes pity on the tramp and takes him to a pub for a pint. And the tramp starts telling Jack about Hal Gryden, who he describes as an embittered businessman whose son committed suicide in the big White House. And Jack thinks that it would be good to try and bring a bit of fantasy back into the world. And so he and the tramp go from pub to pub as Jack starts telling tall stories about his own life. And the tramp sort of warns Jack that the police will be onto them soon and helps him to flee. He might now be regarded as a bit of an accessory for all of this.
It's funny that, when Jack's telling his stories, one of the people he mentions is the face of Bo. And
Yeah.
And this was written before we learn, how
They are
Bo
connected.
and Captain Jack are. Yeah. So it was kind of meant to be like a one-off reference here, but I think it holds unintended additional meaning in hindsight.
Yeah. So as they run off and they go to an overgrown area of the city, and then the tramp reveals that he is in fact Hal Gryden himself, and that Jack has passed his test.
And I kind of saw that coming, where I was reading it, and I'm like, this tramp's going to turn out to be someone important. Yeah. So then the tramp, or Hal Gryden, as he calls himself, leads Jack down to a rundown warehouse at the edge of the city, claiming that this is where Static's studios are hidden, and that the special effects and the sets are still somewhat shoddy, but it's the quality of the storytelling that matters. So kind of a
Is that
inside
a metaphor?
reference.
Yes.
Yeah. Another metaphor.
Well, yeah.
Inside reference to Doctor Who. And
Yes, yeah. The CGI is still shoddy, certainly. Particularly in 2005.
so the warehouse is interesting too, because it was kind of a really striking scene that you learn that the warehouse is filled with children's toys that have been discarded and collected over the years.
Yeah.
And that was really
Creepy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to remember where I saw a film recently that had a similar scene.
Oh, I can tell you, possibly.
Was it Blade Runner 2049?
Oh, maybe. Last night we watched the first chapter of It.
Oh, okay.
And
The new one? Or
the new one, yeah. Well, It Part 1, but yeah, so the one for 2017. And that has scenes of rooms of kind of like abandoned toys and things. But yeah, Blade Runner as well. Knowing your taste, I suspect you're far more likely to watch Blade Runner than It.
Yeah. I haven't watched it yet. But I kind of know what the story is because I've listened to podcasts talking about it, but haven't watched it myself. So then Jack and Hal are going through these warehouses trying to find the studios, and then the police storm the warehouse, presumably alerted by someone who saw Jack enter the building, because Jack's risen quickly to the most wanted list from all of the storytelling he's been doing in the various pubs. Jack is able to hold off the police while the tramp, Hal, leads him to the studio entrance, but when they break through the door, they only find another deserted room, and then Jack realizes too late that the tramp was only deluding himself into believing that he was Hal Gryden, and in fact is not. And they're forced to surrender to the police, and then the tramp is kind of saying, don't take me to the big white house, as they get hauled off.
Yeah, that came as a surprise to me.
Yeah, same.
Because like you, I was just like, oh, this tramp's somebody, this tramp's someone. And I'm like, oh, no, it's just a tramp.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's kind of a double bluff there.
Yeah. Yeah, so Rose is, she's woken up in the hotel room, and she just catches a little glimpse of a broadcast on the TV, a bloke telling people that it's good to dream, even bad dreams, because they allow you to kind of fight monsters and improve yourself whilst not actually putting yourself in real danger. Which, interestingly, is one of the arguments that people use for like the scary things in Doctor Who, and saying that it's a nice way to frighten children a little bit and just give them that little hint of peril in a safe way. Because I think there's quite a bit here. Because obviously, when Steve Lyons is writing this book, nobody has any idea as to how much of a success Doctor Who is going to be. Mm-hmm. Most of the people are kind of assuming it's a one-season wonder. Mm-hmm. And so that's why I think on one level the book is a call just to, that it's okay to kind of like live in your imagination and to hope, and you can imagine that like if the series had been a flop, that this would have just been used as this is an important message, etc. That this book could have been possibly a bit of a rallying cry, and people kind of and there would have been like a bittersweet thing about the Ninth
like
Doctor
an epilogue almost. And you get that a little bit too in the in-jokes and references that Steve Lyons sneaks in. So, not only ties to, I think, Satellite 5 is mentioned, the companion Adam is mentioned. Yeah. The Jagrafess is mentioned. Yeah. But also, like, the Salations, the shark creatures that he came up with. I think it was kind of important to try and, especially the first couple years where RTD, on screen, no references to Gallifrey, no references to the history of the show. So in order to tie it to the Wilderness Years stuff that had come before, I feel like there were like little attempts to kind of like slide in things that connect everything together. Yeah. For me, like the best deep cut moment was there's a reference to Steve Lyons' 2002 Big Finish audio, The Ratings War, when Dominic is flipping through channels and he stops for a moment on a show called Audience Shares, where Todd and Lucy are competing for a chance at their own docudrama. Right. But there's no mention of Beep the Meep there. Okay, I've not heard the Ratings War, so I didn't get that reference at all. But I thought that was just a reference to the desperation of trying to get, audience figures and, Interesting. But, Rose is in her hotel room. She leaves and to track down Dominic, try to find out more about this sort of, this underground where we're all talking about fiction and everything. But she starts getting the sensation she's being watched. Then she starts having glimpses of the flesh-eating zombies from the comic, that they're just kind of like lurking in the shadows. I thought that was really effective. Yeah. And Dominic's hiding out in a cafe near his house. And when he sees Rose, he apologises for running away. It says that he's seen Hal Dryden calling on the people of the world to rise up against the oppressors. But then Rose sees the zombies closing in on the two of them, and then she realises that the people around her can't see them, which must mean that the static broadcasts have kind of like have altered her brain in some ways, so that she can see these other things. So she fights off the zombies and drags Dominic to safety. But he stops running when he realises that he and Rose are not running from the same thing, because he thought that they were being chased by the police. But as he's seeing Rose trying to fight off these zombies that don't exist, he realises that Rose has gone fantasy crazy. That was an interesting thing where they're each kind of experiencing a delusion, but they're not. And from the narrative perspective, you're thinking, oh, Rose has kind of cracked it and she's figured out, okay, there's these zombies lurking, no one can see them. I was starting to think of like, oh, it's kind of like The Silence. That's where my mind started going, rather than they're both imagining different things. And also because these things aren't doing this, aren't performing the same actions in the scenes. It's because like sometimes you have stuff like that where someone might be imagining a cop or someone might be imagining a zombie, but the cop and the zombie are doing the same moves or something like that. But there is no synchronization between their fantasies, if you see what I mean. So then Rose insists that the doctor can help them fight the zombies, but Dominic points out that she's claiming to travel through time and space with an alien who saved her from shop window dummies, which isn't very plausible. But, so she's trying to prove that, she's telling the truth. So she uses her cell phone to call her mom back in the 21st century. So they have a bit of a catch up with Jackie. And, when Jackie realizes that it's Rose, she starts lecturing her about how cruelly she treated Mickey and Cardiff, which is a reference to where things landed, at the end of Boomtown. And then this cold dose of reality wakes Rose up, and she realizes that the zombies, though they seemed real at the time, were just in her imagination. So they go back to Rose's hotel room and to kind of figure out what to do next. And Dominic tells Rose that the planet was once called Discovery, one of the references to the different planet names out there.
Yeah. So whilst Rose is trying to calm herself down, Dominic switches on the TV and then sees that the ordinary news broadcasts are now discussing Hal Gryden. Because until now they've been trying to ignore him in the hope that he'd gone away. But now they've been forced to address the growing civil unrest and kind of like bring Gryden out into the open. And he feels that now that more and more people are aware of Hal Gryden, the revolution can actually begin. So Dominic sort of surfs the channels until he stumbles across Static, which is now broadcasting a sitcom based around people of a colony that are kind of stupid sheep that believe everything that the media tell them without thinking for themselves. Modern parallels? No. So glued to the TV set, Dominic fails to notice what's happening in the room until the Doctor arrives, and then finds a note from Rose claiming that she'd left some time ago, apparently with the Doctor. Which I found that confusing when I read that at first, but then I was like, yeah.
It makes sense later.
Yeah, it does, but yeah.
One of the other parallels that I noticed too, in terms of the city and the layout, I wonder if Steve Lyons was influenced at all by the film Dark City, because that was kind of, and I had only just seen that film recently, so maybe that's why its imagery was in my head. But when I was visualizing the city and how it was like all self-contained and you couldn't really leave it, that's kind of what it reminded me of.
I think he's also quite influenced by Judge Dredd, particularly the fact that Waller doesn't take a helmet off. Because Dredd, well, it's been a long time since I've read a Dredd comic, but Dredd typically does not, apart from the 90s movie of which we do not speak, which, because they got sliced alone, it takes the helmet off. There are definitely, she feels quite Dredd-like. It does feel a bit like Mega City to me.
With her name being Waller, I was visualizing a little bit Amanda Waller from the DC universe kind of.
Suicide Squad, yeah.
Meanwhile, back with Captain Jack, he's taken to the big white house by two hostile policemen, one of whom now fears for his sister's sanity because she was in one of the pubs where Jack was telling his tales about his past. The intake nurse, Cal Tycho, shows Jack a few Rorschach ink blot tests, and Jack, trying to present himself as a model patient, correctly identifies them as random splotches of ink. Which I thought was funny. And then Tycho allows him to mix in with the other patients for a while. He doesn't seem to be as far gone as the officers are telling him. And Jack is disturbed to find that many of the patients are genuinely incapable of distinguishing between fantasy and reality.
There's this great bit roundabout here where he's speaking to someone who's quite religious, but like fanatically religious, and sort of feels that they've been put in there to punish them for their sins. Because I just started thinking just before this section, oh, hang on, where would religion fit into this world? Because of the fact that religion is something that, I'm not wanting to cause offence here, but how there is often not firm evidence.
Seeing how like faith is treated in the narrative versus
yeah,
and they kind of align it similar to imagination or the same side of the brain.
Yeah, but because here they use an absolute fanatic. And so it gives a little bit of kind of wriggle room.
Yeah, it kind of sidesteps the question.
Yeah, sidesteps. It brings the question up, but then sidesteps it, which I thought I suppose that's an all right way to deal with it. But it was interesting because had that occurred to you or?
Yeah, it just whether or not they were going to go there in the narrative, and I was at least appreciated that Steve Lyons brought it up as a question, even though they kind of sidestepped the resolution of it, leaving it open to interpretation and so forth. So then. Tycho then questions Jack again, but doesn't believe Jack's claim to be a visitor from another world since no one has ever visited the planet since the colony was founded. Jack challenges him to let the media follow him into his ship, the TARDIS, to prove that he's speaking the truth, but Tycho refuses, claiming that complex truths would be just as confusing as fiction to the people, which...
Modern parallels, yeah.
Yeah, more parallels. He then concedes that Jack shows extraordinary mental discipline in resisting the pull of fantasy, but just as Jack thinks he's getting somewhere, Tycho then has the orderlies restrain him, and since Jack is not fantasy crazy, this means he's fully aware of what he's doing when he perpetuates fiction, which in their mind is even worse, So then Tycho sentences him to emergency brain surgery, saying that the visualization centers in the right side of his brain will be burnt out and severed from the linguistic centers in his left hemisphere, meaning that Jack will never be able to dream again. Which is very sinister.
Yes, very sinister indeed. Rose is out on the streets, and she believes that the doctor is kind of right by her side, though seemingly none of the cab drivers seem to notice him waving them down. And the doctor kind of waits for Rose to work out the truth about this planet herself before explaining it, and saying that the media are in control, just like in the long game. And he's not able to pronounce the unpronounceable thing from the long game. I am not going to make an attempt. You did a valid attempt at doing it earlier.
The Jagrafess, but the long form of that name,
yes.
The mighty something something.
Yes. Yeah.
I can do Raxacoricofallapatorius, but I never learned the Jagrafess one.
No. Yeah, so to fight back, they realise they need to make contact with the dissidents at the big white house. But when they arrive at the destination, the driver ignores the doctor's psychic paper and demands money from Rose. But of course she doesn't have any. So she and the doctor have to flee when the furious cab driver is trying to take her back to the depot. And the doctor tries to help Rose climb over the wall surrounding the big white house, but she keeps slipping out of his grasp. And there is an interesting little bit of dialogue here. Bear in mind, this is an imaginary version of the Doctor, and the Doctor sort of tells Rose that she's been eating too many chips. And it's kind of like, oh, I mean, okay, sure, it's her imagination, but also bearing in mind what we now know of the sort of like the mental health. I'm trying to think of the right words here, but yeah.
What Eccleston was going through at the time when he was filming.
And Billy Piper.
And Billy, yeah.
Yeah. Ooh. Yeah.
It doesn't age well now, but it also didn't age well when Moffat made a similar joke in the pilot with Bill.
Yeah.
Just a few years ago, and it was similarly just kind of like, ooh, but yeah, with the connotations of those two actors too, in hindsight it takes on additional.
But also, because it's coming from Rose's imagination, you have that slight kind of, Anyway.
We also get a reference to her gymnastics abilities, which was only ever, I think, in the pilot.
Yes. Yes, completely forgotten about later. But yeah, so she runs into a force field as well that Doctor failed to warn her about. And so she then decides to walk straight through the front gate and claiming that she's brought the Doctor in for treatment. And the guard lets her through because it's clear that she's delusional. And she tries to slip into the main building without attracting attention, but she kind of triggers various alarms and captured by the orderlies. And the Doctor is standing by and doing nothing as they restrain her and inject her with the contents of a syringe. And as the injection takes effect, she sees the imaginary Doctor vanishing into thin air. So, that was the section of the book.
Yeah, so we get that twice. I could tell like right away that it was the imaginary Doctor. When he's standing out in traffic and none of the taxis are stopping, and kind of that seemed to me more obvious than the bit with the tramp pretending to be Hal earlier.
Yeah, and because we've already had people being deluded, and so now certainly I was looking out for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, same. So then back at the hotel, the real Doctor storms out asking Dominic if he wants to come along, and we get a fantastic little callback to the trailer for the new Doctor Who, where he says, "Do you want to come with me? But if you do, I should warn you." And only after does Dominic realize that the Doctor timed his question perfectly at the very moment when he was ready to say yes. So the Doctor leads Dominic out of the city into the jungle, where anything could be lurking. But despite Dominic's fears, the Doctor seems to have no trouble telling what's real and what's imaginary. And then we get a bit of a plot hole, I think, here, where Dominic says, when the original colony landed here, there's nothing to be worried about because there were no indigenous life forms. And it's like, well, you have a jungle planet. Plants are a life form. Maybe not like an animal life form, but...
yes, but is it a plot hole, or it's what Dominic's been told?
True.
And what that civilization's come to believe?
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. So then they arrive at the TARDIS, and you get a great scene where, the Doctor's showing it off, and you get a fantastic description of the TARDIS itself. It's just a great description. It says... His first impression was that the huge round chamber was alive as the jungle outside. Coral clung to its walls, support beams twisted and branched like trees, cables hung like creepers and trailed like roots along the floor. So I like that because one of the things I never really liked about Eccleston's TARDIS was all the random hoses and stuff that were hanging from the ceilings. But that kind of visual, like almost like a tree, that helps me like the design a little bit more, I think.
And also as well, because he's getting in touch with his imagination maybe a bit more now. I think it really works as a description from his viewpoint.
Mm-hmm. So Dominic follows the Doctor into the ship thinking that he's going to wake up, and he's imagining this, and he doesn't make any protests when the Doctor leads him to the TARDIS's operating theater. Which I didn't know it has a room for everything.
Well, we've got swimming pool, so, you know.
Puts him in a strange chair and fits a headset onto his head, and then the Doctor runs a series of tests until Dominic feels something like an electric jolt pass through his entire body. And then he takes Dominic back outside in the jungle, and he asks him to imagine the zombies from his comic book. And Dominic's able to do so, but he's realizing that the zombies in his head don't seem as real as they once did. So unlike, with Rose, where she really thought the zombies were there, he's able now to, because of what the Doctor did to him, put those things squarely in like the imagination category. And the Doctor goes on to explain that the planet's atmosphere is full of microorganisms that feed off electrical activity, and that the Doctor has temporarily driven them out of Dominic's brain, and he'll be safe, I guess, for a few hours. And then when they return, he's permanently fixed Dominic so that he can safely dream of things without his imagination taking over. So even though the parasites are still there, he's managed to neutralize their ability to make people lose their grasp on reality.
The TARDIS's operating theatre, I just find it quite an remarkable thing. Also, bear in mind, there's some serious brain surgery stuff that you seem to be able to do with it. It's like maybe he uses that to manipulate Mel to leave? Possibly in Dragonfire? But also, he must surely have made that after Turlough's reign, because you'd have thought that the Fifth Doctor might have said, Turlough, do you want to just sit down in here and I can kind of find out why you're trying to kill me? Yeah,
maybe it was the events of Terminus that he's like, I need a medical bay now.
Yeah, maybe. Anyways, right, so back at the big white house, the orderlies wheel Jack into an operating theatre where a surgeon is getting ready to burn out his brain with a wire just as this highly scientific procedure is about to start. Rose breaks into the hospital and the surgeon sends the orderlies to deal with the security breach. Jack manages to pull one hand free of his restraints, untie himself, and overpower the surgeon and the two remaining orderlies. Because it's Captain Jack and he does this kind of thing.
And that was a bit of a vicious, he was struggle there where he's strapped to the gurney and he's on his side and he's trying to break out and he picks up the table or the bed he's on and he whips it around like a baseball bat almost. Yeah, quite the fight scene there.
Yes, yeah. So he plans at first to escape using the key cards from the orderlies, but changes his mind when he sees Rose being dragged off to a padded cell. And he breaks into a room, but he has to hide behind a door when Tycho, the receiving nurse, pops by to check in on his new patient. And since Tycho doesn't notice Jack, he doesn't respond to his presence. And Rose concludes that she's just imagining Jack, bless her. And so she's refusing to speak to Jack when Tycho leaves the room. But but then he's able to pronounce the name of the Jaggerfress in full, and I am not going to try that. And because that's something that the imaginary Doctor was unable to do, she realises he's real after all.
The mighty Jaggerfess of the Holy Hadrojasic Maxon Rodenfo, I believe.
But also, Jack wasn't in the long game.
He wasn't, no.
So how does he know how to pronounce this?
The Face of Bo was in the long game. But, yeah, man.
The Face of Bo's not in the long game, is he?
He's on one of the TV screens where they talk about his children or whatever.
I'm not quite sure. I guess maybe they just chatted about some of their adventures and Jack just remembers these things because he's a time agent or something. But
that's an interesting. Yeah, I don't know if it's a gap or what, because I think there's a bit of a line where he says, "Oh, the famous Mighty Jagerfest," like he's heard of him too.
Yeah, maybe. But yeah, so Rose and Jack now understand that the people of this world are generally incapable of telling fantasy from reality, and that the lords against fiction have been put there to kind of like protect. But they also know that that the big white house is this horrific overreaction to the problem, and whatever is going on, the house's kind of victims don't deserve what's actually happening to them. So they decide to release their fellow patients and show the world but what's really happening at the big white house.
Meanwhile, going back to Inspector Waller, she starts dreaming of the imaginary monsters that got her sent to the big white house in the first place when she was a teenager. And it's revealed that the girl in the prologue, Kimmy, is her. So Kimmy Waller became the inspector eventually. And so she wakes up and she finds that the rest of the world has gone fantasy crazy. And on her television, she sees Hal Gryden asking his followers to rise up and drag the world down into meaningless anarchy and chaos. And although not officially on duty, she dons her uniform and is pleased when she receives a call from her superior, Steele, ordering her into action. However, the chaos continues to spread as ordinary citizens respond to imaginary threats and make the situation worse. She receives word that the patients have taken over the big white house, and she rushes to help, and she realizes when she arrives that she's considered the senior officer on the scene. So Captain Jack contacts her and explains that his only demands, because he's got hostages now with the orderlies and some of the patients, his demands are that the big white house stop treating patients who are not truly sick. They may be obeying the law, but it's time for the law to change. And then the doctor arrives with Dominic, who he introduces as his research assistant, working on his documentary with him. And he offers to enter the big white house and speak to Jack to find out what's going on. And out of her depth, Waller agrees to let the doctor enter, only after he promises that he'll take full responsibility for the risk. So they send him in as a hostage negotiator / film crew to kind of, to document what's happening inside the big white house.
Yeah, so as you do. So inside the White House, Jack tells the doctor that there's 220 sane patients manning the barricades. And, well, as sane as anybody is, I guess. And the doctor checks on Rose and assures her that she's not going mad, that the microorganisms in the planet's atmosphere have been feeding off the electroactivity in her brain and feeding back the surplus, and so thus overwhelming the brain's ability to distinguish between dreams and reality. And then there's this rather lovely bit where the doctor leaves Rose with a cheery thought that all of the wit that the imaginary doctor had been showing was in fact her. And that's just, that is so Knife Doctor, isn't it? It's so RTD. It just makes my heart sing. I was like, oh, that is just sweet.
The power was inside you all this time.
Yeah, it's corny, yeah, but it's great.
But it is nice.
It's great.
Yeah.
It's great.
It's a great moment, yeah.
Yeah, because with these books, we have people, I mean, okay, sure, they've seen possibly rushes, they may have seen scripts, but because the Revive series is so different from the majority of the classic series, with its focus on, the companion and also kind of like the companion's growth, apart from, seasons 25 and season 26. I mean, there's not much on the classic era like that, and so it's just fabulous that this book takes the ball and runs with it in that way. So the doctor then visits Cal Tycho, the nurse, and reveals the truth and tells him how to cure his patients without lobotomizing them, which that seems like a good thing to do. And leaves Tycho to decide for himself whether or not he believes what the doctor's just been saying. And the doctor then addresses the remaining patients and reveals that there's no such person as Hal Gryden, that he's a fiction, a mass hallucination dreamed up by people with no other outlet for their suppressed desires. And now that he's become public, everybody believes in him, and the people of the city are answering Hal's call to rise up against those who have oppressed him. But there are no such oppressors, and the colony will tear itself apart unless the Doctor can stop it. So, and again, the modern parallels here, because you're just thinking of people talking about like the deep state and and like deep establishment and various things like that, and you're just like, yeah, it's...
Yeah, there's really only the state and, long-serving career people who work throughout various administrations. So there's a state, but it's not really like the deep state that people foist that fiction onto it.
Yeah. This book is so timely to now, isn't it?
It is, yeah. And it's the revelation about Hal Gryden was big too, because there were several scenes throughout the book where different characters are seen watching TV and they catch little glimpses of him.
Yeah.
And then you have to realize, retroactively that all those instances are really just in the people's imagination, and they're daydreaming, or they're not realizing that they're coming up with these, like game shows that Hal's putting on, and where they're sending people to exotic places. It just, none of that is real, and it's just people's dreams and wishes, and kind of manifesting due to the microorganisms that are causing them not to be able to distinguish between fantasy and reality. So it was one of those revelations where you have to where for me at least I had to stop and think about it, and then think back through everything I had read thus far and kind of adjust it in my mind a little bit to kind of align to the new reality that that was so very meta in that sense.
Yeah.
And not to mention all the modern parallels too.
Yeah.
So then the Doctor uses the big White House's computers to reach and hack into the old colonial government systems, which were never shut down. And he uses them to override the media signals on the planet and broadcast a message to the colonists using the equivalent of a emergency response channel. And he claims that he's the real Hal Gryden and calls for an end to the violence. And so now when people think of Hal, they'll be remembering him with their left hemispheres rather than dreaming of him with their right. So by the Doctor's reasoning, that should help calm the riots down, which I don't know if I followed that line of thought. But then when the Doctor identifies himself as Gryden, the police, storm the big White House to arrest him, led by the furious Inspector Waller. And Jack, Rose, Dominic, and all the other patients, they try to help hold the police back, but some of the patients go fantasy crazy in the thick of the fighting, as do some of the police. And finally, the police make their way to the Doctor's makeshift broadcast booth, which is quite a sequence to even get to that, because they have to go through various floors of different traps that Jack and Rose and have put together as ways to kind of give the Doctor a few more seconds of time. And then when Inspector Waller finally does reach the Doctor and tries to place him under arrest, he calmly requests that she contact her superiors and find out what they really think of her actions. So she does so. She gets onto her communicator, and she hears Steele confirming that she's done the right thing. But then the other police turn their guns on Waller because the Doctor points out that her wrist communicator is broken, it's damaged, and it always has been. That there is no Steele, and Waller isn't in fact a real policewoman, but a woman who never really recovered from her nervous breakdown and lost herself in fantasies of helping people overcome their own imaginations. So all of this happens on record as, the camera's broadcasting everything. And because of this revelation, the riots come to an end. So I thought that was an incredibly, interesting reveal where you realize that this woman who you thought was this, very capable policewoman this entire time, and she is.
Yeah.
But, she found a police bike somewhere and has been doing it on her own all these years and isn't even part of the real police force.
So part of me did wonder, because that revelation for me came out of left field, but also when you're looking through the synopsis, you're like, yeah, there's hints all along the way. But they're kind of like, how is she getting paid?
Yeah, that's a good question. Maybe they have a basic public income or something.
Yeah, maybe. I don't quite know how it works, because But anyway, so so the Doctor and his friends surrender voluntarily, and Tycho goes public with the news about the microorganisms, and the colony's top scientists immediately develop a cure. Hurrah! And then they realise that they've only imagined their success, and they have to do another one, which I just thought was fantastic. But of course these microorganisms are going to protect themselves by saying, oh yes, you found a cure, it's all solved. So Jack, Rose and Dominic are eventually released from the big White House, and the Doctor escapes of his own accord. And then Waller is released after the head of police admits that she's got a better arrest record than any of the real police officers. And so once this real cure is found, life on the colony gradually begins to change for the better. And the colonists discover that the planet's name is in fact Arcanus Major, which really doesn't mean much of anything. So there is, as we said earlier, there's no significance to the name at all. And fantasy and fiction become more commonplace as people learn to tell the difference. And eventually a new science fiction program appears on the colony's media networks. The Adventures of a Mysterious Traveller in Time and Space, known only as Hal Gryden. And that's where the story ends. So,
Wow.
Yeah. I like the fact that it takes a little while for them, when they're finding the cure and then finding the real cure and the Doctor's escape. That's you get the impression that takes place over a while. So
Yeah, there's some time that passes where they stay on the colony a bit.
Yeah. That's good.
So
what do you think?
Well, I think you may have liked it a little bit more than I did, just judging by the comments. But I did really enjoy this. I thought it was well written. I thought the characterization of Rose was really good. It seemed like he probably had a few more episodes of her to watch or to read. And the Doctor generally seems to be, similar to the Ninth Doctor, but there's a few instances where he seems a little bit more gruff, I think, than his, Eccleston's portrayal of him on the series. Jack seems pretty good, but a little distant and potentially like a little bit of a late ad. But I thought his characterization here was better than the characterization of Jack in Only Human. I thought it was interesting that there really wasn't a villain or an antagonist in this story. The closest we get is probably the nurse, Tycho, and maybe the surgeon. And even they are kind of sort of victims in the end. So I thought that was, because usually most of the books we read, there's a big bad or some sort of villain. In this case, it's the microorganism. So that was a good twist and made it feel a little bit, in some respects, I feel like Series 11, in that some of the Series 11 stories also didn't really have a villain, like the Pating episode. It's more of a circumstances or what they're caught up in.
Yeah.
What did you think of it?
Yeah, no, I did really enjoy it. Yeah, I think I agree with you about Rose's characterization. Yeah, I have to say I thought the Ninth Doctor was very well done throughout. Because he can be gruff. This is the Ninth Doctor. He leaves Adam to his fate, doesn't he? So. Yeah, because there's a definite edge to the Ninth Doctor. And also, I love the fact he does capture the Ninth Doctor's voice in the dialogue, just because this is a Doctor who speaks so differently from most of the previous incarnations. And I thought he just nailed it. But yeah, I agree, Captain Jack does kind of feel like he was maybe tacked on a little bit. But then I think if this was done earlier in the series, before Jack arrived, I don't know. Yeah, I think it would be struggled for it to kind of get to kind of like novel length. Really, I don't know.
Yeah, and I feel like they each had, even though they did the classic, okay, all three of them are doing their own separate subplots. I felt like each of them had something to do in turn, and pairing Jack up with the Tramp and Rose up with Dominic, and then the Doctor up with Inspector Waller. It did a good job of giving them each, that duo to bounce ideas off each other and investigate. I would have wished for, and I it seems like I always do with a lot of these novels, is want more of that inner dynamic TARDIS team where they're working together and not spending the whole book apart from each other.
Yeah.
But that's par for the course in most Doctor Who, that they all get separated out like that.
It's harder to do. It means that you end up having to do more plot. So unless you're doing a short story, I think it does become that bit more. It is very tempting to split them up. Just from my own limited experience of writing the TARDIS or a different TARDIS crew. When I was writing my thing, the only reason why I didn't split Ian and Barbara up was that I knew I had some other stuff that I could use just to, not to fill the space, but so there were other things I could cut between. So sorry.
Oh no.
What else did I think about? The modern parallels. Yeah, all the stuff about truth and fiction fiction and
the media.
Yeah.
And how you have to have a critical eye with what you're being presented with and compare it to facts. And it seems like this kind of calls out fake news before it was a thing. Sort of, yeah.
So this was after... So the book was published in 2005. So in the UK, probably by the time the book was being created, you had stuff like the sexed up, using quotes, the alleged sexed up dossier about the Iraq War, which then became a big debate in the UK press as to how you can believe things and what you should believe. Also as well, on reality TV, I mean, Big Brother had become a huge hit in the year 2000, and so there was lots of stuff in the zeitgeist, but you didn't quite fully appreciate like exactly where we were going. And in the same way that Vengeance on Varos, in some ways, is a kind of like a chilling vision of our present. There are bits here and it's like, ooh, yeah.
It's interesting, too, that Steve Lyons, he's revisiting the concept of fiction versus nonfiction, and I thought the concept of fiction, in Conundrum with the land of fiction, having gone to visit the land of fiction in Conundrum, we now visit the land of nonfiction in the Stealers of Dreams. It's kind of an interesting inverse of that story in some sense.
It's true. I mean, in some ways, there's a better sequel to Conundrum than, say, Head Games, or at least from my recollection of Head Games, which was a long time ago.
I ended up reading this, but I did get the audio version too, and I listened to that in just a few different parts, and I thought Camille Kaduri did a really good job of different voices for the different characters, and she does a surprisingly good Ninth Doctor impersonation, so her Eccleston was spot on, so that was cool. Right. Yeah, I definitely enjoyed reading it. Shall we score this one?
Yeah, do you want to go first?
Sure. So for me, I was kind of waffling between a 7 out of 10 or an 8 out of 10, but I think I'm going to go with a 7. I'd say a strong 7. It's just, I think the lack of an antagonist for me was, I was expecting, something for them to go up against, and I realize that's kind of part of the plot of the story, and that, hey, the surprise is that there isn't. But parts of the narrative too, with the dream realities and stuff, that it did kind of cause me to scrunch my eyebrows in a few different spots where I was, in retrospect, I wasn't confused, but the first time through reading the book for me, it just, spots like that stood out and were confusing for me. So maybe with a little bit additional clarity, and I realized that was the whole point of it too.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of dinging it for something it was trying to do.
For the message it's trying to convey.
Yeah. But yeah, so for me, I think I'm going to go with a 7. How about yourself?
I was recently thinking about Seeing Eye. I listened to the Fiction Paradoxes episode on Seeing Eye the other week, and I remember about how I very much enjoyed it until it suddenly became a Doctor Who book. And I actually really like the fact that this doesn't. I mean, I see what you say about, yes, there isn't really an antagonist, but I also like the fact that, it is the enemy within, isn't it? It's the enemy. It's your mind. Everybody's the enemy, but there isn't somebody kind of like pulling at strings, or there isn't this shady cabal or something. That it is all just people's fears. So score 9.
Okay.
Yep. It just speaks to the world we're in, I think.
And maybe that was part of it for me too, where as I was reading it, I was thinking, I go to Doctor Who for escapism, and and this month I got an extra dose of reality. Yes. So that may have affected my score too.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. But sometimes it's just, it is useful to just see that mirror, even though you kind of think, I already know what this mirror is showing me. But yeah.
Yeah, no, it's a great book, and I'm glad I read it. It's just, I think the characterization in a few parts being what it was, and that seemed to have affected me more than you in terms of the different characters.
Yeah.
But yeah, and it being maybe hitting a little too close to home was I already have nightmares about the big white house. So. Now I have more.
Yes, this is true. But I mean, I know people have said that the new series Adventures books were sort of like quite dumbed down, and sure, quite a few of them are not as complex as the Eighth Doctor books, or certainly this is definitely a worthy read. Yeah, I'm just really glad that I got a chance to read it, because that's one of the great things about doing this podcast, is that because I'd been told, the Ninth Doctor books in particular are just rubbish. And I'd read one which I hadn't cared for at all, and I'd found it to be a bit of a slog. But then you have something like this, just like, whoa, no, this is a good book. Yeah, if this had been published in the New Adventures era, or in the Eighth Doctor era, I think that this is a book that you'd hear about as being a classic. I think.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly held up well over the years.
Yeah.
And I don't think other books around that era have aged as well. So
Yeah. I mean, it might have got bogged down with whole stuff about Dark Sam or something like that. But yeah, on its own, it's worth a read.
For sure, I agree. Shall we go on to listener feedback then?
Yes, let's.
Okay, so it doesn't look like we have any new emails this month, unfortunately, but you can reach us at andwbcpodcast@gmail.com, and we'd be happy to read any thoughts that you want to send our way. So please do so if you've read this or any of our other books that we've podcasted about, or just want to share your thoughts in general. Happy to hear those. Doesn't look like on the US side that we've gotten any new iTunes reviews in about 8 months or so. So if listeners would be so kind as to review us on their podcatcher of choice, it would be very much appreciated. I don't know about on the
UK side. It's a similar thing. I am pleased to say that all of our reviews have been 5 out of 5, which is lovely. But yes, do please rate us, because it does help feed the algorithm. We have had on our Facebook page, we've been recommended by Mike Todd, who said that it's great coverage of Doctor Who in print from both the new and classic eras, which is lovely. So thank you, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
So, on Facebook we've had the usual kind of plethora of likes. But though I think the action this month has been more on Twitter, hasn't it?
Yeah, Twitter, they've got quite a bit going on. Stephen from the New to Who podcast says that entirely by chance, speaking about our selection last month, Foreign Devils in Wonderland, that he read the Tellus novellas a few months ago and was very much looking forward to our episode. Similarly, Keith says he's never bought any of the Tellus novellas when they were available, so he's able to experience them at least a little bit on our podcast. The Big Bad Wolf laments that that there isn't a Telos range today, because they would like to see some novella-length stories set during the new series. That would be interesting. And then Jacqueline O. Molosky writes that she may have to start seeking out the Telos novellas as they're new to her, and she doesn't know how she missed that series back in the day. And then finally, we have a nice note from Paul, who is a new listener, who writes that he just got caught up to all the episodes and was surprised to hear Sark mentioned in Grave Matter, as he lives in Guernsey. And he's really enjoying the podcast and thanks us for the work.
Yeah. Well, Guernsey was where I was staying when we went to Sark. But yes, folks, do go visit the Channel Islands. They have a very interesting and unique history. Certainly from a UK point of view, as anyone who has read Just War would know. So, because it's Just War set on Guernsey or Jersey, I can't remember.
I don't know. Yeah, it's been a long time since I've read that one.
Yeah.
So
this is where you tell us what we're going to be doing next month.
It is. Yeah. And this was the end of our reading. Stealers of Dreams has completed our current Doctor cycle. It was the last one in this run through.
Yep.
And so from now, we're going to maybe take a few side steps here and there. We'll definitely be starting up a new Doctor cycle next spring, but until then, I think we're going to engage the randomizer a little bit and have a little fun, jump around. So to start us off, I'm going to pick a short story anthology for next month, but one's a little different because they're all written by the same person.
Okay.
So we're going to read to tie in a bit with Christmas, especially since we don't seem to be getting a Christmas special this year again. So don't blink. We are going to be reading 12 Angels Weeping by Dave Rudden next month.
Okay.
And there's a lot that I want to say, but I shall not say anything.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting.
And that's available both. There's a gorgeous hardcover. It has illustrations for each of the stories. Otherwise, it's also available on Audible. And so in this case, it's read by the author, but then also Nicholas Briggs appears as well as another actor to do the audio for it. So a couple of different options there in terms of how to experience it.
Okay.
And of course, I'm sure it's available digitally too.
I'm going to go for the Kindle version.
Okay.
Is this the guy who did Dimensions in Time, or am I getting confused? I think it's a different chap, isn't it?
Yeah, no, it's a different person
Okay,
entirely.
cool. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Oh, you know where he's from?
Where's that?
He's from St. Louis.
Missouri?
Yes.
I was there this summer.
Yeah, according to Wikipedia. So yeah.
He also follows us on Twitter.
Oh no. Oh, okay.
So for December,
Right.
we'll be ringing in the holiday with 12 Angels Weeping.
Marvelous. That's nice. Cool.
So until next month, this has been Matt in Minnesota.
Chris in South London. Happy reading.
Thank you for listening to the all-new adventures of the Doctor Who Book Club podcast. Special thanks to George C. Music for use of their song, Doctor Who Theme, Swing Jazz Version. You can follow us on Twitter at ANDWBC Podcast and like us on Facebook. You can support the show by leaving us a rating and review on iTunes. You can contact the show by emailing your thoughts to andwbcpodcast@gmail.com. And until next month, happy reading.
Cool.
Could you do the outro one more time?
Yeah, sorry.
It sounded like almost like, you know, when someone has like a body mic and it rubs on their clothes.
Oh, okay.
And you hear that kind of
that kind of stuff.
like that.
Yeah. Okay.
Like a
Okay. Might be my headphone thing or something. But anyway, right. Chris in South London. Happy reading.
it was still there.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Okay, sure. Let me just.
It's fine right now. So
Okay.
just whatever adjust or whatever moving of your head or whatever was causing that.
Okay. So Chris in South London. Happy reading. Is that okay?
No.
I'll tell you what. I'll remove my headphones.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm doing this a bit blind. Chris in South London. Happy reading. And I'll now put the headphones back on. Is that better?
No, it sounded like you were 10 feet away from the mics.
I'm not.
I could just lift it from
I'm not.
last month's too.
Sorry.
I don't know. I don't know why
what's happened there. Unless it's the headphones cable banging against my shirt. Is it that? I'm doing.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Yeah. So that's the headphone cable on my shirt. In which case, I will. I've just switched it around. Hang on a sec. I've just accidentally unplugged my headphones. Sorry about that.